Good evening, all you lovely lot in Endeavour. Now, of course, I'm filming on Wednesday night, ready for Thursday morning. What's going to happen today? We left it last night, didn't we, on chapter 17 of our class novel, The Fire Thief, where little Jim says he didn't know that this would be his last robbery ever. I've got a feeling things are going to turn sour. Let's get on with chapter 18, where our author takes us back to ancient Greece first. I just want to take you back to Theus's home for a moment. I don't want you to think that things had been standing back still in ancient Greece while we were doing the robbery. Things were happening that were going to change our lives 1,000,000 years later. The Fury, remember, he's after Theus, isn't he? With a clatter of claws, landed on the marble floors of the palace and stalked across the room. One of the palace pets sat there chewing on 3 bones, one for each head. For this was the Chimera, one of the creatures the gods used for rampaging around the world and horrifying humans, just for fun. The Chimera had 3 heads, a lion, a goat and a snake. Being born with 3 heads is no fun, so do not mock the Chimera. When one of these heads is a goat's head, then it's a real nightmare. I mean to say, have you ever smelled a goat's breath? Imagine being stuck next to that all your life. No wonder the Chimera was bad-tempered. By the way, do not try smelling a goat's breath to check what I say. If you die as a result, you will not be given your money back for this book. Its body was also mixed, having the front part of a lion, the middle of a goat, and a snake for a tail. It wasn't pretty, and it wasn't the sort of monster you'd want to meet in an Eden City alley in a dark night. To be honest, you wouldn't want to meet it in the daytime either. It was just back from the country called Lycia, where it had been killing cattle and terrifying tots. "What do you want?" the lion head asked the Fury. "I want Zeus," the big bird said. "You want Zeus?" the snake said to the goat. "He wants some soup," the goat bleated. "Zeus!" the snakehead hissed. "Bless you," the goat said. "I'm looking for our leader," the Fury said. "For what?" the lion asked. "None of your business," the Fury snapped. "In that case, we won't tell you, will we?" The snake snapped back. "We won't," the lion and the goat agreed. The Fury closed its eyes and tried to keep its temper. Finally it opened them and said calmly, "If you will help me, then I'll find a whole city for you to attack and terrify. I am tired. I have been circling Earth for 1,000 years and I haven't tasted liver in all that time. Help me and I'll give you that city." "Ah," the goat gurgled. "A settee. I need somewhere comfy to sit." "Goat head," the lion groaned, "you are deaf." "Deaf? Deaf!" the lion roared. "I know, it's all your roaring wrecked my ears," the goat replied. "Shut up and let's hear what the Fury has to say," hissed the snake. "It wasn't me that interrupted, it was the goat," the lion argued. "A coat? Yeah, I could do with a coat. There's a draft in here," the goat said. "Have you seen Zeus?" "Shoes? Horses wear shoes. But we're the Chimera. You can't put shoes on lion feet, can it, lion?" "Shut up!" the lion roared. The goat's eyes blinked. "Sorry, I'm not sure. I was only trying to help," it muttered. The lion went on. "Anyway, Zeus isn't here. He went off into the future to see his cousin." The Fury hopped forward. "How far forward in the future?" it demanded. "Oh," the lion yawned. "I happened to hear from Hermes, and he'd been talking to Hera. Zeus was having some new wings made by his son, Hephaestus." "The ugly young god?" the Fury nodded. "Yes," the snakehead hissed. "Twisted and broken legs from where Hera once flung him off the mountain. In fact," the snake added slyly, "his legs as twisted as your back. How did that happen, Fury?" "That's not important," the big bird snarled. "What did Zeus say?" "Oh, he said he wanted his wings strong enough to take him 1,000,000 years into the future," the lion replied. "Yes, I heard him say that," the snake said. "I didn't hear him," the goat put in sadly. The Fury was confused. You didn't hear it? Are you saying he's lying? Of course he's a lion and the other one's a snake, the goat said. The monster bird shook its feathers. Thank you, Chimera. 1,000,000 years, eh? I haven't been looking that far into the future. He shuffled to the window ledge and made ready to take off. Thanks, that's been great. A grape? The goat head bleated. Oh, shut up, the lion, the snake bellowed as the fury took off again. Meanwhile, in Mucklethrift Manor, I was speeding through the rooms. I had a large felt sack and thick material muffled the clank of the silver and gold as I dropped things in. I took time to close all the drawers and the cupboards after I'd emptied them. With luck, no one in the manor would notice the missing loot until we were far away in another city. Servants were busy in the long dining room setting the table for the guests. Just one of those silver teaspoons would have kept the match girl in bread for a month. But I knew everyone would be heading straight for the dining room. If I took anything from there, it'd be missed very quickly and spoil the getaway plans. I went into the library, where the aura of Zeus still hung in the air somehow, like a dream after you've woken up. I dropped all the most precious things into the bag and sped into the hall. A minute had ticked by. I looked at each of the other rooms, and at the same steady pace, I didn't race, I didn't make mistakes, I didn't drag my feet. There was a cloakroom where guests had hung their coats. I took one more precious minute to go through wallets and purses and slip out a little cash. So much cash from such rich people. I didn't empty the wallets, of course, because the owner would have missed the money and called the police. Just a few notes and coins from each one. When I'd finished downstairs, 5 minutes had gone on the clock. As the hand crept to 7:25, I raced to the coffin and pressed the button to open the lid. It didn't move. I'd oiled it, I swear I had. I gave it a kick and at last it swung open. The skeleton sat up and I pushed him further forward. There was a deep space underneath him and I slipped the heavy bag inside out of sight. I pushed the cash into a pocket under the skinny skeleton's head and I pulled a second bag from the coffin and ran up the stairs. I went up 2 at a time. 4 minutes. No more, no less. The bedrooms and bathrooms were empty now. The servants were all worrying about dinner for 30 guests. I must have missed a fortune inside the handbags and jewellery boxes on dressing tables, but some ruby rings and an emerald bracelet and diamond cufflinks were real treasures. I tore out onto the landing and heard a creak at the bottom of the stairs. The great clock was winding itself up to chime half-hour. I threw myself onto the banister and slid down and I almost landed on top of the coffin. Ding dong, went the clock. I kicked the button and the skeleton rose. Ding dong, dong. The clock finished chiming. The door of the drawing room swung open slowly. Uncle Edward peered around to see me struggling to stuff the second sack in and slammed the lid down on the bony skull. His face was red. Uncle Edward's face, not the skeleton. Even under the grease paint and powder I could see he was hot and worried. He pulled Theus out after him and whispered, "Get the chest out of here and the storm in, now." Theus obeyed and put the heavy box on one shoulder. Mr. Mucklethrift threw the door open wider to let his guests out to the dining room, and the rich folk pushed past me and flattened me against the wall in their greed to get their food. "Sorry about that," Mr. Mucklethrift said, throwing an arm around Uncle Edward's shoulder. "Are you sure you don't want to join us for dinner?" Uncle Edward had the magic lantern wrapped in the cloth we used for a screen, and he tucked it under his arm. "No, Mr. Mucklethrift," he said, "another show to do before the night's out." Mr. Mucklethrift shook hands with Uncle Edward. "Good night then, Slaughter. A pleasure to have met you. I hope you'll come again soon, some evening." "Oh, of course. I look forward to seeing you again soon," Uncle Edward lied. Of course, we didn't plan to see Mr. Mucklethrift ever again. Little did we know that we would, and not in his drawing room.